is Robert Kerr. I've known TAIWANfest and Asian Canadian Special Events Association for many years, going back to early mid-2000s. At the time that I was moving from being founding executive director for the Vancouver International Jazz Festival to the program director for the Vancouver 2010 Cultural Olympiad, and was really happy to partner with Charlie and TAIWANfest. After the Olympics and doing a couple of other things in Vancouver, moved to Toronto in 2012, and for the past 7 years have been working with the City of Toronto, part of the programming team for city cultural events. At Toronto, we produced some major events here, including a virtual Canada Day this year, and went really, really well. It was a very interesting experience doing it all online and virtually, but one that I'm happy we were able to do. So maybe 3 years ago, almost, my wife Julie and I, we decided to buy a cottage out here on Lake Huron, which is one of the Great Lakes, of course. And it's just a lovely area, and fortunate to be able to work from home from my cottage. Have internet access and tons of nature, and yeah, it's a beautiful place to be. I just have a lemon soda. The fizz is nice, especially on a hot day. I find it pretty refreshing. I might go for a beer now, but this is good. That's a very good question. You know, I come from a privileged place in terms of Canadian society. I'm a white male, and I'm trying to understand what that privilege means. And I'm by no means putting this out there as any kind of hindrance, but I'm a tall person. Sometimes people can be a little put off by a 6'7" person. If they don't know me, they go, whoa, who's that scary guy? And I think I'm a pretty friendly person, so maybe that's what they misunderstand about me sometimes at first glance. Well, it was one of the most extraordinary experiences of my life, for sure. The opportunity to work with so many different organizations, to partner with so many different organizations, and then the commitment to work with community, and the buy-in to the philosophy to work with the community, to partner with community, and to make it such an inclusive event. Fortunately, the philosophy for VANOC overall, from John Furlong on down, was that they were Canada's games, not Vancouver's games or BC's games or Whistler's games. They were Canada's games. So that larger perspective helped to inform and support our approach to being as inclusive as we could within our community, locally, as well as regionally and nationally and internationally. You know, all those things, I think the relationships, like in terms of the working relationships with our team, you know, you form bonds for life. The relationships with artists and with organizations, those are the things that really stay with you. Those are the things that I think I find most rewarding. And then the results of the work itself and how well received it was. That was really fabulous to see that all our hard work and the community's hard work paid off. And I hope and I think I helped to move things forward in some way as far as the cultural scene in Vancouver and BC. The opportunity to actually visit Taiwan, to meet the people of Taiwan, to meet the artists and experience their work at home in their studios and in some really amazing settings, and to travel the country and to really get to know your beautiful country and to have that feeling of the place that the culture is from, and to be able to connect further with the artists, work with the artists to determine the work, that the performances, the installations that we would bring to Vancouver. And it was a very sort of complete, very holistic experience, if you will. And it certainly is one of my most memorable experiences of the Cultural Olympiad, for sure. I had some knowledge of Cloudgate prior to going to Taiwan, to Taipei. I had never seen any of their works in person, but I certainly knew of the extraordinary reputation. Seeing their performance in person and live just blew me away. We were interested in Moonwater, one of their signature pieces, and so they performed a version of it. So it was just the dancers in the space with basic lighting, and I was so knocked out by the performance. It was just so beautiful and so moving, and just seemed to touch something so human. I mean, I know at the point, okay, we absolutely have to have this, work in the Cultural Olympiad. But then having the opportunity to spend some time with Lin Hua-min, to get to know Mr. Lin on a personal level, is such a stimulating person, such an engaging person, really generous. To be able to hang out and learn more about the work and his philosophy, it really was one of the real highlights for me, and an extraordinary opportunity that I will never forget. And those memories of hanging out, and we went to this beautiful outdoor park with sculptures and fountains, and it was just one of those magical experiences that stays with me to this day, that's for sure. And I've continued to remain in touch with Cloudgate and with Mr. Lin. It's been one of those sort of enduring relationships. Youth theater, again, was such an amazing experience, going up the mountain to their sanctuary, being in that outdoor space and being so close to the work, and then the work itself. And we were so close, and they were swinging the large drumsticks that they used to strike the drums, and they were coming within inches of us, So that was just stunning. And again, such beautiful, warm, welcoming, generous people. Michael Lin, his work, of course, is of such a grand scale. What I came to understand, sort of like the grandmother's patterns, but to repurpose that in such a contemporary way and to use that to take over that exterior of the Vancouver Art Gallery, it really became an iconic image for the games itself. Having that backdrop was just so stunning and so vibrant. And, it being February, which can be a pretty dark time of year, it just added so much color. Yes, indeed. And their work was so brilliant. Really strong performance, very contemporary. To have that in a more intimate kind of space and setting, again, another really wonderful part of the Cultural Olympiad. Indeed, and exceptional musicians. This wonderful thing that I find with a number of Taiwanese artists is this incredible grounding in folkloric traditions, classical traditions, but then also this very forward-looking thinking and forward-looking perspective, and this capacity within contemporary work and to bring new work forward, but yet to have it grounded in sort of this home culture and folkloric culture. Really fantastic musicians. In a way, I felt we had only scratched the surface of Taiwanese arts and culture. And of course, that's the case. There were so many other wonderful artists that saw on that trip and in subsequent trips, the depth and quality and energy in Taiwanese arts and culture has always been really quite remarkable, and something the world needs to know more about. In preparing for the trip and in talking with you, Charlie, I'd seen a little bit of information about the lantern festivals, and that really fascinated me. And when we were talking about the time of year and when to go, you were saying, it crosses over with the end of the lantern festival period and the big one in Kaohsiung. And that was really interesting to me because I've also been very fascinated by work in public space and thinking about how that type of animating a public space, really brings people together. It creates an opportunity for a shared experience on a large scale. So I was really interested in the lantern festivals, and you just took over the cities, and having that experience just within the whole, feeling like you're really part of the community and part of this shared community experience, that was very cool. And I think that was something that working with you for Lunar Fest that we were able to recreate to a certain extent on Granville Street, and it really brought the street to life. It created a space where people could celebrate through a cultural experience and have some wonder and joy and some discovery around things that maybe they're not familiar with or not, haven't experienced before. So that felt really exciting and really valuable as part of a cultural Olympiad, where you're trying to bring people together through culture and celebrate culture on an international scale and share those experiences of the world with the host community and then also all the visitors. In terms of the strong contingency of Taiwanese artists and performers within the Cultural Olympiad, it was one of those things that developed on the strength of the work. It felt to me and my colleagues like it was work that was maybe not quite as well known in Vancouver and Canada as it could be, and here was an opportunity to provide a window in terms of what was going on behind the scenes. There was a lot of enthusiasm for the work. Where it did become a little interesting and move into territory that was a little unfamiliar for me was the politics of the IOC. China exerts a lot of influence internationally, and of course with the Summer Olympics having been in Beijing in 2008. So there was some sensitivity, I think less so as far as I was aware within VANOC, within the organizing committee, but more so with the protocol offices in terms of, okay, how do we handle this with the IOC and maintain the proper sort of relationships and respect with China. Fortunately, we weren't the first people to have gone through this experience. There were already protocols in place with the IOC. From my experience, Taiwanese works have a different sense of humor, really warm and a little unexpected. And that's what I find so interesting. And I think that distinguishes it from much of Chinese arts and culture as well. Within the context of the Cultural Olympiad and working within the context of VANOC, we had revenue targets on the ticket sales side of things, but those revenue targets were a relatively small part of our budget compared to what they would be for a typical presenter. So we had a bit of a luxury that way in that we could take risks with artists who are maybe not as well known. I think that's one of the biggest challenges for work from Asia coming to Canada and North America is that there is a lack of awareness. So there's a lack of notoriety and knowledge within the audiences here about the work. You have a company like Cloudgate, for example, enormous international reputation. But even within Canada, it's hard for Cloudgate to tour. Canada's a small country from a population perspective, spread over an enormous geographic footprint. So you have these huge distances, which makes the logistics and the costs associated with touring in Canada costly and challenging. And it helps when presenters have the right context wherein they can present unfamiliar work to audiences, and audiences are ready to take those risks because they trust the presenter or they trust the festival. In terms of Asian artists and management and presenters interested in presenting work from Asia, it's building the trust of your audience so that they will be prepared to embrace unfamiliar work. So networking with other presenters, in your region, across the country, into the States, trying to piece together the foundation for a reasonable tour that makes it feasible for the artist, feasible for the tour support. Those are all really important factors. But I think as the world continues to become a smaller and smaller place, most places are still interested in each other and in the world and what's out there. So let's hope that curiosity continues and opens up more opportunities. I think it's top of mind, I think, for most organizations who are thinking responsibly about their place in their community, reflecting their community in the broadest possible sense is something that they aspire to, and something that can be difficult at times given the financial realities of producing and presenting arts and culture in Canada, but that it is really key to what we do, to any organization presenting in a contemporary context in this country. It's essential. I believe most presenters and producers understand that and are trying to achieve that. I think TAIWANfest is a very important festival. It provides an opportunity to explore and understand and get a better appreciation for the cultural fabric of Taiwan. TAIWANfest is a showcase in that in many respects. If presenters are unfamiliar with work from Taiwan, they have a real opportunity through your festival to come and experience that work and see what it's about and consider whether that could work in their season or within their festival or what have you. So it's a really valuable opportunity for presenters in that respect. I know it's a great opportunity for the Taiwanese Canadian community to come together and celebrate their roots. What TAIWANfest does as well is it helps to maybe break down the expectations or the stereotypes of Taiwanese culture. The culture in most places around the world is really multifaceted, and sometimes we only experience a small slice of it. So having the opportunity for a broader exposure to a larger mix is always really valuable and fun and exciting. And then there's all the good food that you present to. I'm Robert Kerr. I'm programmer with the City of Toronto Cultural Events team, and I'm different, just like you.